Hey guys, welcome back. So we're on chapter 3 of Mail Order Soulmate, so let's get started. Catherine woke with a start, uncertain where she was. She hadn't slept so soundly in months, possibly even a year. Swinging her legs over the side of the bed, she rubbed the sleep from her eyes as the past year came back to her. Her father and the rest of the Davies gang, and formerly known as the British Mafia, had been arrested during a sting operation just days before her boyfriend's death. Simon had been one of the nightclub's managers, and she hadn't yet figured out how to tell him she was pregnant when a car accident had taken his life. Just about every Davies family member and everyone close to them had been brought in on charges during the sting operation, including Simon and herself. She left home at age 16, wanting nothing to do with the lying, cheating, and scheming that went on around her. She returned on to attend her mother's funeral a few years ago, and had never believed she'd separated her life from her family. But little has she realized the nightclub where she'd been working as an events coordinator for the past 7 years, booking headliners and constantly making it the place to be in London, had actually been a front for her father's gang. The worst part was that Simon, manager of the club, may have been involved in the backroom money laundering scheme, and she made it easy by constantly making the profits hit the roof each and every month. When the officers put the pieces together for her, building a picture for her naivety and betrayal, she vomited all over the international room. She'd been released fairly quickly after that with no pending charges. Simon had been released hours later, and when he died in a suspicious car accident days later, it had sealed things for her. Her child was not going to grow up anywhere near her father, brothers, cousins, and their associates. They already assumed she was a snitch who cut a deal allowing her to walk away without charges while they'd been up behind bars. That put a target on her back. And Simon, she still wasn't sure whether simply being associated with her had led to this accident or if he'd been playing both sides and had paid the price. Either way, the man she'd been involved with was dead, and she feared it wouldn't be long until she joined him, or her child grew up to face a seemingly good offer, like she had with the club's primo events coordinator job. That was simply too good to refuse. She was breaking the circle, saying goodbye to the fear and instant crime. She was moving beyond the reach of her family's control once and for all. By the time a frantic Leo, her bartender friend, had caught up with her that day before Simon's funeral, she'd already prepared herself to go into hiding. He helped explaining how and where to get a fake identity, then shoved several email bride and groom profiles into her hand, including Zach's, saying that might be a good way to lie low. She scoffed at the idea of marrying herself off, but had agreed that disappearing would be wise. So instead of going husband shopping, she'd taken the cash she kept hidden at home and had gone underground, using a variety of fake names and working small jobs under the table in various countries, until Xavier was born in Honduras. Her family had looked for her after she fled, and stories of her disappearance had surfaced in news. But after the surprisingly quick conversation 6 months after their arrest, a mere 3 months ago, they've grown quiet, apparently no longer in need of her as an ally, or else the reporters had lost interest in the missing woman and the lack of leads. She continued to lie low up until Xavier's birth, staying on the move and hoping she was safe. But Xavier had been a colicky baby, and by the end of the past 2 interminable months, compounded by the nagging feeling that she was being watched wherever she went, she dug out Zach's profile, ready to settle down in a quiet place that was off the beaten path. She figured Zach must have already found someone, but he hadn't, and he'd seemed pretty close to perfect. Thus began their online chats and her eventual plans to join him as Catherine Tisdale. Fresh start. Now she was here in Blueberry Springs with a new life, new baby, new husband, new hair, new name, new curves, thanks to the pregnancy as well as stress eating. New everything. She had owed nobody a thing, and vice versa. She'd get up this morning, find a job, pay her own way in this relationship, and make it clear that neither she or nor Zach should ever expect more than she could give. Except that apparently half the town had already sent over baby items for Savior, the bassinet having only been the beginning. Everyone's so kind and so giving it made her ill. She couldn't owe this many people. She had been raised knowing that if people brought you something, it was never out of the goodness of their hearts. It was because tomorrow or the next day they'd be on your doorstep with their hand out, implying you owed them. Catherine reached for the diaper bag, patting its hard plastic bottom, which was covered with cloth. Feeling along the edges, she could make out the faint outline of the extra passports she had made as a precaution. The bag's plastic handle was still heavy, with the cash rolled up inside. It would be a trick and a half to retrieve it, but the money was safe, just like the disguise she had at the ready in the zippered compartment inside. It wasn't much, just a wig, different shirt, and a large scarf she could drape over herself to look pregnant if Xavier was in his baby sling, which also never left the bag. As long as she had this and Xavier, they could run at any moment. She inhaled slowly, trying to calm a sense of unease. The town meant well, and she wanted Xavier to grow up in a place where people cared about their neighbors. She could handle their generosity. It was unlikely they expected more than she was willing to give in return. Most of the real world was not like her family, and if she had judged poorly and had chosen the wrong town, she had her exit papers. Xavier began to steer, and out of habit she lifted him before he could cry. She fed and changed him before heading downstairs to see what awaited her. There in the kitchen, wearing a white and blue striped apron and flipping pancakes, was Zach. She drew up short. She had not expected Mr. G.I. Joe to wear an apron, let alone make pancakes, which, judging from the ingredients still out on the counter, were from scratch. Then again, she supposed, like a good mother, the army had instilled good habits. She bet he was great with an iron and could make a bed without a single wrinkle. She found herself smiling at the domestic scene before her, wondering if he was truly as amazing as he appeared. "Do you eat pancakes?" he asked. He'd been humming what sounded like an old show tune, but stopped, obviously having sensed her presence despite having his back to her. "I figured if you like Italian, you must not mind gluten." "I'll eat anything," Catherine said, gratefully, her stomach rumbling at the sense of coffee, pancakes, and bacon. A pink baby swing had appeared overnight, sitting where the bassinet had been, beside the table last night. No, that had not been lunchtime. "What time is it?" she asked, while she burst Xavier. "And I'll cook tomorrow. What time do you get up?" "It's a little before 7, Mountain Standard Time. I usually get up at 5:30, and I don't mind cooking." Wow, she'd really slept. She'd gone for a rest after the spaghetti, waking only a minute or two when Xavier was hungry. But all in all, she slept for almost 17 hours. "Is there anything you don't eat?" she asked as she put Xavier in the swing, securing the safety straps. She was either going to have to get up early than usual to cook when it was her turn, or the two of them would have to cook and eat separately. Maybe we should eat on our own in the mornings. Zach ignored the comment as he slid a pancake onto the empty plate beside her. It was the same spot she sat in last night, and she realized she had a plate at this man's table. Her place, and he was feeding her, making her breakfast. She liked it. It made her feel warm, welcome. "And where did the swing come from?" she asked, avoiding the unfamiliar and present sensation that was swirling inside her. Turns out we're a bit of a gossip piece at the moment. There's even more stuff in the living room. More? How was she going to keep track of what went back to whom? Zach's expression was unreadable, As he settled across from her, stacking through pancakes and drowning down in syrup. Gossip? She asked. Yup. He cut through the pile, then shoved a big fat pancake into his mouth. I suppose marrying someone you've never met and having her show up on your doorstep with a baby is noteworthy. She focused herself to sit straight up, to not slump into a dejected mess. So much for keeping a low profile. She was in hiding. Didn't they get that? As long as nobody started plastering her face on social media, facial recognition could rat her out in a heartbeat. If anyone from her family was actually looking for her in order to issue payback for their time behind bars. Zach smiled at her dry comment, his blue eyes twinkling with amazement, and what might be happiness. The ridiculousness of the situation made her want to smile too, as if they were sharing an inside joke that the world didn't understand. But she could still feel the panic tightening, the lack of control she had over the way things were unrolling before her. She ignored the temporary sense of unease and settled on enjoying having someone with her in this lonely inner circle, if only for a moment or two. The town is mostly harmless, Zach said, polishing off his stack of pancakes. She nodded, focusing on doctoring up her own, laying a few pieces of bacon on top before pouring syrup over it. Would a small community such as this one allow her to leave her past locked in the closet? Will they judge her for wanting privacy? Is anyone in town hiring? I should get a job. You ready to leave, Xavier? Zach asked, his eyebrows jumping up in surprise. Catherine bit her bottom lip, glaring at her son in the borrowed swing. She hated to, but she couldn't just sit here and be dependent on Zach. I need my own money. I was hoping I might find something I could do from home. She cleared her throat, feeling odd calling his place home from here. You know, it's okay to lean on me for a few months, Zach said, his voice low and careful. I don't expect much. Just help out here and there, and we'll call it even. He gave a warm chuckle. We are married, after all. I'm used to being independent. She knew that sounded formal, but she needed him to know she wasn't here to sit around and leech off him. I can respect that, he said, after a long moment. I do appreciate your kindness, she added quickly, feeling as though she'd been rude. I can ask around about jobs. What can you do? I'm a fast learner. I can do anything. Drive a snowplow? I'm sure I can learn. She was willing to figure out how to do anything, even if it might lead to her freezing to death. On second thought, maybe not that job. Well, we'll find you anything, Zach said. Folks in town like to be helpful. It sounds as though it is a very kind place. 'Tis the best. Zach leaned forward, circling his left thumb in front of his nose as he said, if you can handle them right up in your face. She laughed at his act, making Xavier jump, and she realized it wasn't a sound her son was used to. He let out an uncertain cry, but Zach reached out and automatically hushing him, while giving the swing a little nudge. You're good with kids. A thought struck her. Do you have some? He shook his head, explaining, I used to babysit for the lady next door. She had 7 kids in the end, but Martha was the last one I set for before heading off to join the army. 2 more came before I left. The army? You mentioned it in the passing, and Catherine wanted to know more. Yep, I was in just about everything by the end. I retired about a year ago. And how is civilization life treating you? She asked. Zach let out a huff that she took to mean that he wasn't so impressed with it. I suppose it takes some getting used to, not having to bounce a coin off your head every morning, and there being nobody around to shout at you. She straightened in her chair. That's why you got married? You need someone to yell at you? She fell against the chair back, hands clapping her stomach as she laughed. Zach scolded at her and rocked the startled Xavier some more. I have enough people shouting in my life, thank you. Try ignoring Liz Moss Brandy on Main Street when she's heard a bit of gossip that involves you. She'll shout and chase you down until you finally acknowledge her. His smile was weird, wire, his eyes filled with an affection for the woman, which told Catherine that maybe Liz and Susan Lachlan weren't that bad in his books after all.